Okay, so to start off, you're gonna need 3 parts. So I have one part here called spawn part. I have one part here called cool part. And I have one part here called camera part. This is the part you get teleported to when you're done being on the stage. And this is the part that teleports you to the stage. I have this cool map here, just for showcase, but you can have whatever you want in your game. Just make sure you have these 3 points called camera, watch part, cool part, and spawn part. And if you know how to script, then you can change it. If not, just leave them this name. Make sure they're all can collect to off and anchor to true. Then you can set their properties, transparency to 1. Once you're done with that, we're gonna move over towards the allocated storage tab. In this tab, you will see a folder called remote events. So you just make this yourself. Inside this folder, you want to add 2 remote events, and you want to call them change camera to player, change camera to stage. Again, if you know the script, you can change these, but just keep them as what they are right now if you don't know how to do it. Next up in server script service, we have the main manager. So I'll open it up, and then we'll go back to that in a minute. Inside starter GUI, you have a screen GUI called choose person text. Inside that, you have a text label called chosen person, and inside of that you have UI strokes, and this is just a sign. You don't need this, but make sure you have these 2 and make sure they're named exactly like me. Then inside starter player, inside starter player scripts, we have one folder called essential client player scripts. Inside this we have a change camera. Again, we're going to be looking at this a bit later. Just going to close it for now. Starter character scripts, you can have another folder called essential client character scripts, and this just disables the reset button. It's only 1 line of code, and it prevents people from resetting when they're on stage, which we don't want. One of the last settings you're going to do is you're going to go into starter player, scroll down, and enable mouse lock button. You want to turn this off unless you really need it for your game. Now let's get into the actual coding. Wait, one last thing. Inside sound service right here, you want to have a folder called system music. Inside this one, you have 2 folders, background music and songs. And inside background music, you have your background music song. Mine sounds a bit like this. But you can have whatever you want. Just make sure to pass in the ID right here, and you want to of course change these ones to whatever you want. You can have as many of these as you want. Just gotta call them on stage sound and then put 1, 2, 3 and then 4, so on, and then put a valid sound ID inside of them. Starting off with the server script, we're going to open it up and we're gonna have a look at the variables first. This is not the entire script, this is just the variables. First of all, we're getting the wait timer, which is the timer we want to wait, and this is an attribute in the script. And then we're getting the scene timer. So to actually make these 2, you want to go to your script, press on it, and press add attribute, and make one that's called round length and one that's called scene time. Now you can change these to whatever you want. Make sure they're set to the number and not anything else, not boolean or anything. Make sure they're set to number, and then you change it to how long your round you want it to be. So round length always has to be more than scene time, else it will mess up the system. So I'll set my round length to 10 seconds, and because it's 10, I will set it to 8 seconds to scene time. So with this, every 10 seconds a new person is going to get on the scene, and the actual person has 8 seconds on the scene. Right. So now going back to the script, we're getting the stage sounds, which is the sounds in the server script service. I'm gonna close some folders to make it a bit more understandable. Then we're getting the background music, which is in another folder, so we have to do that as well. Then we're getting the 2 remote events. So for this server script, I'm calling them shoot event 1 and 2. And you just of course want to reference these inside replicated storage. And then we're getting a variable called chosen player, and you want to set this to nil for now, just for now. Now we make a table so we call it local player table. Call this whatever you want, just make sure it has these columns right here because they are a table. It's an empty table for now, but we're going to fill it out with the players later. Opening up the while true loop, so while true do is just gonna run forever. We're making a function called get others, which is the other players, the player currently on stage, because there's a person on stage. If you're not on stage, then this camera part I showed you, the player, if you're not on stage, then your camera will be looking directly at the guy on stage. So let me try to show you this. So putting a zombie into the game, imagine a character is standing right here, and then you will basically see this. You will see there's a guy right in front of you, and then once the player goes back, then your camera goes to normal. But this is inside the local script. We'll go into that in a minute. So just make sure that you're doing this function, get others. So here we're getting the players, and we're making a temporary table. And inside here, we're making a for loop. So we're saying for the players, and then we're setting it to I pairs, which is just pairs, but in order with the players that we did up here, that we defined up here. Do. So inside this for loop, every time this runs, we'll check if the player's name is not the same as chosen player. So if it's not the player on stage, it's not the chosen player, then we will insert their name into this table, because it's the table of the remaining people, not the guy on stage. And then we'll just print it. We can remove this print. And then we will close off this, and we will return our temp table. Going down here, we're going to play our background music, and we're making another loop. In here, we are getting the game.players.getPlayers. This is the same as saying players, but I just did it like this. You can just say players here as well. So if you want to do that, you could do this and say players. But for now, I'm going back to this. And also, now that I think about it, you can't do that because this isn't a function. This isn't a scope. This is another scope. So forget what I just said. Here, we're getting all the players in the game, and we're inserting them to the player table. So it's this table we set up here. So this is the table that manages the actual players in the game. Then from this table, we're going to choose a random one. So we make a p call here into a function. We're saying if there's more than 0 people, so that's a 1 and above in our player table, then we choose a random player from the player table, math.random, choose one hashtag player table. So we choose one out of the player table. And then we set the other ones to the get other function that we did up here. So the others, now we can now reference other people to others instead of this function up here. And then we're gonna go into one, which is just print, but it's yellow, cooler. The chosen player is, and then the chosen player. And this just prints an output. This is not the actual text. Then we're getting the character, so we're saying local chosen character, chosen player character. It's the game that workspace find first child chosen player. And what this essentially does is that it will choose, if I run the game real quick. You'll see that inside players right here. I'm here and my name is script casual, so it will look in workspace until it finds boop, script casual, and then this will be my character, which is correct. So anyways, now that we have our character, we are going to set the text on the screen. So again, another for loop with all the players in the game. So we're saying setting the player's player UI, which is essentially the same as started UI. Where every time you run the game, every started UI object gets cloned into the started UI or into the player UI. So if I was to do started UI here, then that wouldn't work. I'd have to do player UI because you can't update something that's cloned, right? So then we're getting the choose person text and the choose person, and then the dot text after that. So we change the text of this text table to the chosen player is, and then our chosen player. And then we end off this loop. Next up here, we're saying if we have a chosen player character, so if they exist, then we set the humanoid root part.cframe to cool part. And our cool part is this part up on stage here. It's invisible right here. Let me just make this transparent so that then we set them on stage. here, we pause the background music because now we're basically in a round, right? So then we're getting a random song. So we're taking all the songs and we're getting a random one. So math random #stage songs. And then we're playing them. So because of this, you can add as many songs as you want. Just have to name them up. So it's, you know, you can able to manage it. Anyways, we're making another for loop down here with the others. So this was the variable from the function that we got up here. So essentially what we're doing is we're shooting the event number 1. So our first remote event to the client, and we're ending that off. And we're doing that because now that we go in here in the local script, that's correct. We're getting the camera. So game that workspace.current camera, getting the player. Actually, we don't need the player, so I'm just going to remove that. Then we're getting the change to part, which is this part right here. And then, you know, we're getting this, and then we're getting both of our events, so our remote events. And in here, I call them pick up, because in here we're picking them up. So we're getting these, and then we're saying on the first event, which was the one we just fired. So every time they get on stage, see on stage, off stage. So every time they get on stage, we shoot this event. And basically what it does is it sets the camera type to scriptable, meaning we can now change the position of it, or the C frame. Then we set the C frame of the camera to the change to part. So this card's part C frame. So, you know, they will, if you're not on stage, then you will see where this part sees. And that off. And then in the next event, which we'll go down to soon, we will just set it back to custom, and custom is the default of Roblox. So that means that your camera goes back to normal. We do that because down here in off stage, we shoot the second event. So once they're no longer on stage, we can shoot the event, and everybody is back to normal until we choose another one to go on stage. But before that, we are going to set their humans walk speed so they can move on stage. They're stuck in place. So we set that to 0 and their jump height to 0. And then we wait the scene time. And the scene time is the one we got in the beginning. It's the attribute of the script. So we change the time and you change how long people is on stage. Then off stage, we're just setting their human on C frame to the part over here. Somewhere right here. I don't remember exactly where it is. I'll just find it. It's here. Spawn part. So we set the C frame to this because now we want them off the stage. And we stop the song. And we then resume. We play our background music again. And then we're looping through the people again. We're shooting the event 2. So this is again the people that aren't on stage. Right. So if you're not on stage, then your camera should go back to normal because the person on stage, his camera is not affected at all. So essentially, if you're not on stage, this is what you're seeing, stuck in place. But if you are on stage, you can look down at the people in the crowd or whatever. So, yeah. And then we're getting their walk speed back to 16. That's the normal set speed. And their jump height back to 7.2, which is the normal as well. Lastly, we are going to loop the players again, and we're going to say intermission because now they are no longer in the game. It's intermission. And yeah, after this, we're going to get our else's. So up here where we said if there's a player, then we do something. But else, if there's not a player, we say we couldn't find the character for chosen player. So we couldn't find the character for this player. Else, if we go even further up, if we say if player table is more than 1, then if it's not more than 1, when we rewarn the error and table is empty. And then we end off the script down here. And then finally, before we go to our next loop, we will wait the wait timer, so the round timer essentially. So instead of having to change this, so if we set wait 10, or 20, something like this, instead of that, we just set it to the wait timer so that we can manually change the time from the script. Makes everything so much easier. Now this, compared with this script, is what gives us our end result. So if I go ahead and boot up in local server, I'll show you what I talked about with the cutscene and how only some of the players get affected by the cutscene. Okay, so they're now in. Let's have a look on the server. So as you can see, the chosen player is being put up there. It says the chosen player is 2. First of all, we couldn't find the table because that's loaded in before our players. But now you see that the chosen players are being taken. So you see 2 was just taken, but now player 1 is being put up on stage. And if I go to player 1, see I get teleported back. If we catch the next one, let's see who goes on stage. It will be this one, so I can look around, but this one, my camera is stuck in place looking at this guy, and I can't move on here. And I can move on here, but my camera is stuck in place anyways, so it doesn't really matter. So this is the stage round, and also in the top here it says intermission, and then the chosen player is, and then the player's name. So that is how to do this. It's pretty simple, only about 150 lines of code. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed it, and if you want this as a model, I'm going on vacation, but I will make this a model as soon as I get back. However, I want you to, in 9 out of 10 cases, just write all this yourself. You can pause in the video when I went over it, and I'll quickly scroll through it again, just so you can get an understanding of the script. But yeah, I recommend that you write this yourself so that you understand it, because that is the most important thing. And for the other script, quick, you can pause the video and type this out. Okay, thank you for watching the video. Leave a like if you enjoyed it, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.